Why aren't Russians abroad doing more to protest the war? https://www.themoscowtimes.com/2023/01/12/ Why aren't Russians abroad doing more to protest the war? 2798899. When Russian President Vladimir Putin came to Yerevan in November, I took part in a protest against the war in Ukraine along with around 20 other Russian migrants to Armenia. We later joined a rally held by a local political party calling for Armenia to end its dependence on Russia, marching with them through the city chanting "Russia is the enemy" and "Putin is a thief and murderer." Despite the arrival of thousands of Russians in the Armenian capital over the past year, the Russian contingent at the protest was tiny, and it was only the far more impressive Armenian turnout that lent the protest any legitimacy at all. I define myself as a Ukrainian, although I was born in Moscow and have lived there for most of my life. My Ukrainian father brought me up identifying as Ukrainian with my Russian mother's support, even though her relatives disapproved. I attended weekend classes to learn Ukrainian and always spoke the language with my father. Growing up, however, I often heard the opinion that a separate Ukrainian identity did not exist, and that being Ukrainian was somehow a deviation from the norm. Today, my father's neighbors in Moscow call him a fascist, because that's what the television tells them about Ukrainians. I'm afraid they may report him to the police, and can only hope that, at the age of 82, he won't be put in jail. However, in recent months I've seen that the repressive Russian state will stop at literally nothing. I rang my parents in tears on the morning of February 24, when I heard the news that Russia had launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. "You should leave the country right away," my mother told me. "First they'll deal with the Ukrainians there, then they'll go after the Ukrainians here." That day, friends abroad asked me whether Moscow would see protests against the invasion. I knew that there wouldn't be, based on past experience. After the annexation of Crimea in 2014, I joined a protest on Maine Square outside the Kremlin, which was swiftly dispersed. There were few protesters and I realized that these puny efforts wouldn't change anything.